Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is not only a fantastic movie, but it may be a glimpse into the future of what the film and TV industry may look like, and why it might make more sense for these big budget movies and all these auteurs to move on to this new way of distribution as opposed to the tried and true way of distribution involving a lot of theatrical release. And why this movie might just change, well, everything. But hey, more on that later on. First, let's talk about Frankenstein and my thoughts on the movie. So, summary, I think Frankenstein was actually really good. I'm a big fan of the original source material, and as a matter of fact, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is one of my favorite novels, so it's really exciting to see an adaptation on screen. So, how did this adaptation stack up to my, expectations? What did I want to see out of it? Well, I thought I did a pretty damn good job. One of the things that really irked me about, modern depictions of Frankenstein is how I don't know if this is the word, but kind of misguided and misinterpreted that character was. The character is really misunderstood, because when you think of a pop culture iteration of Frankenstein, it's this unintelligent beast with the bolts out of the neck and the garish scars, but as a matter of fact, that's not really the point of Mary Shelley, Victor Frankenstein's creature. That's not really him, and that's not really how he's portrayed in the books as well. So it's really, really good to see a depiction of Frankenstein that is not only a little bit more accurate to the source material, but also far, far more interesting. I would rather see a 2-hour movie of, a highly intelligent, well-read Frankenstein's monster instead of, just a creature feature film involving an unintelligent zombie, essentially. And here's another thing I loved about the movie. The way that they interpreted it was also amazing, as in the tools that they use, so the cinematography and the production design and the performances in particular. And I just wanted to draw particular attention to Frankenstein's monster, the creature, the design of the creature sort of thing. There's this beautiful otherworldliness but also elegance to it. Oh, it's just fantastic. I think the prosthetics and the costumes and everything were absolutely spot on with this one. And it's not just the costumes and the prosthetics and things like that, but also the overall set design. They strike this perfect balance of staying true to the period as well as adding Guillermo del Toro's, signature fantasy, out of this world kind of vibe. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did, and it was fantastic. Every frame in this film is a treat for the eyes because of the intricacy of the sets, because of all the props, the costumes, all of that came together to make a rather visually stunning film. This is only further enhanced by the top tier performances by the cast. The cast is absolutely loaded. It's a stacked cast. Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, Christoph Waltz. I mean, come on. Look, I have mixed feelings about Jacob Elordi as an actor, but god damn it, it pains me to say it, but he does a really, really good job in this film. He actually kills it. The physicality and the way he is in the prosthetics, especially in those early days of him being the creature. My heart really, really went out to him, and that's just because his performance was fantastic. And needless to say, all the other cast members were great. Oscar Isaac always kills. He's I love Oscar Isaac. He's my goat, dude. He's actually my goat. Christoph Waltz, always goated. Mia Goth is a great performance. Her and Pearl, fantastic. This one, more the same. She kills it every single time. But anyway, those are the things that I really liked about the movie. Let's get on to the things that I dislike about the movie. And to be honest, there isn't really that many. I am a hardcore Guillermo del Toro glazer, so I love all his stuff. Low key, one of his best, most underrated films is Pacific Rim, and that was one of my favorite things to watch growing up, not just for the all the fighting robots, but just the set design and the intricacy of the kaiju designs. Anyway, that's probably a video for a whole nother day, to be honest. But back to the things that I didn't super like about the film. The main thing that I didn't enjoy is the pacing. The pacing is a bit weird, but it's not necessarily the fault of, the screenwriter or, Guillermo in this case. It's more so the book. Like, the book is kind of weirdly paced in that sense that, like, the first half is, like, from Victor's point of view, and the second half from the creature's point of view. I think the first half went for way too long, and I found myself just, like, waiting, like, when's the creature gonna show up? When's the creature gonna show up? That's kind of like why I'm watching this sort of thing. And that whole thing didn't get introduced into the thing until about like an hour into the movie or something like that, and we only start hearing the creature side of the story about an hour and a half into it or something like that. I'm not too sure, I'll have to double check that, but yeah, the pacing for me was a little bit of an issue. But other than that, I really enjoyed the film. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. The thing that I wanted to make this video about was about the way that this film was released. Why this film might change everything about the film and TV industry. Because it's not only, like, in a way, the first of its kind, but also a bit of a taste for what is to come in terms of a viable option for releasing these types of big budget movies that is viable and not actively losing Hollywood money like the current state of film and TV is. Before I go into any detail on this, if you're enjoying this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. That would mean the world to me. Anyway, back to the video. In a sense, this film is the first of its kind, at least what I've observed. It's this artistically credible, auteur-driven film that's released specifically with streaming in mind. Yes, I'm aware that there's a limited run theatrical release, but it's a made-for-Netflix movie, and this is a caliber of movie that I have not expected from Netflix given the previous Netflix releases. Now, there have been some really successful, movies created for Netflix exclusively sort of thing, take Extraction 2, those movies, right? But this is in a whole different league. This is not only just a spectacle, like maybe Extraction was, but it's an artistically credible, like, real movie, for lack of a better term. It is a real movie. Okay, that's probably a bad way of putting it, but you know what I mean, right? It is this highbrow, I guess, concept film that has sort of bypassed the traditional way of doing things, because typically, you get like, La La Land, for example, right? They released the movie in theaters, it had a substantial theatrical run, a few months go by, gets released on DVD or whatever, gets released on Amazon Prime for rentals, right? And then, maybe a year or two go by, then they're releasing it on streaming. That's how it goes. But this movie completely circumvents it. And there is a reason for that, right? The only reason why they've done this, it's not because, like, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their own heart. Ultimately, like, Netflix did not pick this film up because they're this, angel investor company, or, they just love art for art's sake. I mean, maybe a little bit of that is true, but to be honest, the way I interpret it as is that there is immense financial motivation for not only Guillermo del Toro, because he gets like a cool new movie happening, like his passion project, but also for Netflix. Netflix loves original content, and they've been consistently trying to up their games in a lot of respect, but also like kind of like downing their game, if that makes sense, in other respects. Another video I spoke a little about that in this video right here, so please check that out. But my point is that they're trying to, get Netflix originals happening to like a high quality so that they don't have to pay out, millions and millions of dollars to like studios, whatever, to get their IP, right? They don't want to be spending millions upon millions of dollars to keep like The Office on Netflix, for instance. But then there's the unique issue where if they don't have any good material on Netflix that people want to watch, then no one's going to pay for the service, right? So this is where Frankenstein comes in, because this is, as I said before, this almost like like god tier cinema level movie for a mainly Netflix release. And I mean, the theatrical release, to be honest, is more so symbolic than anything. They're not planning on making their money from the theatrical release. If they do, great. If they don't, then they probably don't even care, because they're probably drawing more viewers in purely by having it release on Netflix than in the theaters. And this sets up a really interesting precedent for the future, because if they are able to, generate a huge amount of success with this model, what is it to say that other films and other directors aren't going to do the same thing? We've seen the writing on the wall for a very, very long time. Cinema and the way that old Hollywood has run, and the way that movies have run for the past however many decades, isn't working anymore. Not in this age of convenience, not in this age of social media. And studios and filmmakers have to pivot, and this may be a very much viable way of doing things. And in my opinion, Guillermo del Toro is a fantastic person to pioneer this, because not only does he have a pre-existing relationship with Netflix, because he created the Pinocchio stop motion film for Netflix, or in collaboration with Netflix or something like that. So there's already that pre-existing relationship, but there's also his credibility and clout as an auteur. And I'm very comfortable with calling him an auteur, because that man is a goddamn artist, right? So I mean, this truly is kind of a revolutionary moment. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below or whatever, but this, at least in this specific instance, is the first movie of its kind to do this, and it may be a taste of what's to come. Is this the future of cinema? Let me know in the comments below, and as usual, if you're enjoying this kind of content, I've got a whole channel full of content similar to this one, so if you could consider liking and subscribing, that would mean the world to me. And I also really just want to have a bit of a conversation in the comments below, because I'm curious to see if you guys actually think that this may be the future of cinematic releases. If we're going into, I mean, we already are kind of seeing it, but if Hollywood's transitioning into this more streamer-friendly, streamer-focused era, tell me what your guys' thoughts are, and most importantly, tell me what you guys thought of the film, because I absolutely loved it. I want to hear your thoughts as well. But anyway, that's been me, and I'll see you in the next one.